Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Marjorie Warkentin about how change impacts individuals mentally and emotionally, and how to break down resistance to change within organizations. Marjorie Warkentin, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thank you.
I'm super excited to have the chance to talk with you today. We're going to be discussing something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is change. Change is ever present in the world around us, and right now we're in the middle of this pandemic and recession, and there's lots of geopolitical dynamics going on. Social strife and angst and all sorts of stuff humming around us just as a broader societal context. And so we're experiencing change, I think, each and every day. But that change also impacts organizations, and organizations are dealing with change, and they're trying to figure out how to deal with a virtual workforce and to integrate new technologies and reach out to customers in new innovative ways. And there's just all of this change happening around us. And so today we're going to be talking about how change impacts us individually and collectively, mentally and emotionally, and how we can break down barriers and resistance to change within organizations. As we get started, I just wanted to share Marjorie's bio with the listeners. Marjorie Warkentin is an author, speaker, and mentor who has spent most of her working career as a nurse in a healthcare setting. Marjorie has also been a trailblazer in many areas of her life, one being the main income earner for her household, providing for her husband and 3 children, way before that was a common situation. She also started running marathons in her 50s, which inspires others to do the same. That is so cool. Marjorie is a lifelong learner with a passion for connecting theory to practical applications that lead to transformation. With her wealth of experience and broad perspective on life, she is able to share her wisdom in accessible and inspiring ways. As a woman that has a heart wired to care for others, you can also find her spending time giving back to her community. What a great background and bio, and what an honor to have the chance to talk with you. And I love the part of your bio where it talks about connecting theory to practical applications that lead to transformation, because I think that's what we all need to be doing all the time. You know, I consider myself a scholar practitioner. I'm a professor. You know, I do the university teaching, and I really do some esoteric research, you know, and I publish in academic journals, and, you know, that has its role, that has its impact. But where I really try to focus my attention is on that practical application, theory to practice to transformation. That's the key. That's what we need in this world.
That's all that counts. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. All the theory in the world is useless if it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we get started, is there anything else you would like to share with listeners by way of personal background?
I think you pretty much covered it. On a personal note, I will say that I have been experiencing exactly what we're going to be talking about today, because when I launched my book in February, I had visions of speaking engagements and book signings and going to retreats and having this in-person time with my readers. And of course, that hasn't happened. And so I would like to share that it's been a huge adjustment for me to switch to the virtual world of sharing the good news of my book and what I'm about, what my values are, and doing that in a way that is often quite lonely. And I don't really know where it's going. So I'm delighted to actually see you face to face today and have this conversation. So that's been a journey for me. I'm energized by groups, by time with people, and it's been challenging.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, a challenging time.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think of just like my own household, and my wife and I both are professors and work from home during COVID. And my kids, I have 6 children. They're all grades 2nd through 11th, and so they're all
Mm-hmm.
doing school from home. And
Wow.
so
Wow.
it's just a full household where
Mm-hmm.
we're all trying to navigate this together. And
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
days some days we're more patient with each other than others, but we're certainly trying. But there's anxieties, there's stresses, there's just all of that that's hanging out there that we all get to deal with, and that's just part of life right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah. Well, so I know you do a lot of work where you talk about the mental and emotional kind of impacts from all the change that we face. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping maybe we can start there.
Okay.
And if you can share a little bit of what you've seen, both in your healthcare background, but
Mm-hmm.
also in your mentoring, coaching type of work.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, what are the types of things that people are dealing with, or rather, not the types of things they're dealing with, but the types of responses, the types of
Right. Okay.
coping mechanisms, the types of ways that they're dealing with the change in their lives, both mentally and
Mm-hmm.
emotionally.
Mm-hmm. I would say the first thing that comes to my mind is that, and this is a trite quote, and it's so true, that change is inevitable. Now that's always been that way, and now it's just right in front of our faces. Like there's no getting away from it. And the thing that I am aware of from my own experience, and also from working with teams, healthcare leaders, is that different people have different ways of responding to change. And so one of the things I did in my workshops and things was kind of a baseline, getting to know what is a personality like. And there are people who thrive on change. They really like the adventure of something new happening. And then there are others who fear it and who just all they want is control. And what I'm noticing in this time of global change, and there's so many stresses politically and structurally, financially, emotionally, with marriage and partners and children. You mentioned that. There's even those people who love change are finding it challenging. And I think the bottom line is that it's a sense of lack of control. There's just, I have no control over anything. Now, again, that's nothing new. That's true no matter what is happening in the world. But right now, it's becoming so evident. And so I think a resistance to change is, don't tell me what to do. Don't bring more stress into my life. I liked having my office in the corner of where we had our business. I want to be there. I don't want to work with my children underfoot. I don't want to have to set up a computer at home. I just want to have comfort. I want to know what's certain. And of course, that's one of the things that's not possible right now. I think the other thing, a lot of leaders want to have that team connection if they're really looking at how teams work well together. And if there isn't a sense of camaraderie and connection, respect for each other, chances are there's not going to be that synergy and productivity that we're all looking for. And that's very challenging in this time of Zoom meetings and virtual calls. And how do we even really stay connected? So I feel for leaders at this time. I'm not active in the workplace right now. And I'm imagining if I would have had to give up my in-person workshops and my leadership team meetings and that even one-on-one conversation with challenges that people are having, I think that's one of the things that's causing resistance right now. Is it's just plain hard.
Yeah, it is. And I think you're absolutely right, and with regards to human nature. We like stability, we like predictability, we like control, we like we like to at least have the mirage of thinking we know what's coming.
Exactly,
You know, it's
yeah.
never been the case. Like, we never actually know what the future will
Yeah.
hold, but we
Yeah.
do kind of get lulled into a sense of
Yeah.
comfort, you
Yeah.
know, through
Yeah.
through certainty, or at least, you know,
Yeah.
faux
Yeah.
certainty, you know. And so I think most people do prefer to live life that way. They
I think so too.
they like
Yeah.
predictability and certainty. Now, not everybody, and some people
Yeah.
truly, you know, just they love the adventure and they embrace, you know,
Yeah.
everything. But those types of people are probably much fewer and far between. And so I think we're constantly dealing with just the innate human survival instincts, you know, that we have. And we want to be able to
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
it through these
Yeah.
difficult times,
Safely. Yeah.
and safely. Yeah. And so it's difficult. And so, you know, whether it's at home, whether it's in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in the workplace, I think that's what we're up against when change is afoot. And that can be big societal changes like we're dealing with right now, but that can also be, you know, even relatively small organizational changes, you know, a shift in policy, a new product or service, bringing a new person onto the team in the workplace,
Yeah.
whatever. We're always dealing with those types of change.
Yeah. One of the things that I think has helped me in my journey of approaching change is I know my personality is such that I want to be part of the process. And I can remember when I was working in the healthcare system, if I was just told, oh, this is a new policy, or by the way, this is what's happening, I had huge resistance. I just thought, it's not like I didn't necessarily want to do the change. I just want to be part of the process. And I don't think I'm alone in that. And so as a leader, if a person can be aware as much as possible, including the team in some of the process. Now I realize some things are not able to be shared at certain times, then just say that, okay, this is all I know. This is what I can share with you. Let's do this together. And so there's a respect for the intelligence and the willingness. So imagining that my team actually is willing to go in this direction, not making up a story that they're resistance and labeling them as problems. And maybe they have some gifts that they can bring to the process of change if I, as a leader, am willing to ask them, look for it, and look for what I want more of, rather than just focusing on the problems and the resistance. I think labeling is a huge disservice, no matter who we are. As a parent, as a leader, as an office manager, it doesn't matter. So being curious, what's really going on? How much can I share? That transparency, I think it's not always possible. I get it. And often there's a lot of hidden agendas that don't have to be hidden.
That's the thing. I'm a big proponent, you know, of the general principle of transparency and over communication. And I think most of the time, not always, sometimes there's legitimate reasons to not be more transparent. But most of the time, when when leaders try to make justifications for not being more transparent, it actually is because of those hidden agendas and personal agendas and kind of the backroom politicking. And it has really nothing to do with what would actually be most useful or successful for the organization or the people. So as a general rule, I think we need to push ourselves towards more communication, more transparency when it comes to change initiatives within an organization. And I think you're absolutely right that employees want to be involved to some extent.
I did.
Yeah. I mean, and not everyone wants to be involved at a super high level, but people want to be informed at a minimum, and they want to be involved in the process. And so as long as you make a good faith effort to involve people and to have discussions and to be transparent, I think most people, even though they don't like change, even though they'd like things to stay the same, if you can explain the why to them and really share with them and help them understand why this is important, then most people will come around.
Yeah. The other piece that just came up, if I can interrupt you here, is the idea for me of accepting what I can't change. Now, that's a really hard one for me. And I think there's times, whether it's in the workplace or in my home life or with my relationship with my husband, if I focus on what I can control, then there's a sense of of ease, and I'm not spinning my wheels it shouldn't be this way. That's one of my downfalls. As soon as I hear myself saying that, I think, okay, it's time to step back. What do I really want? And can I take steps for that? And sometimes it's just my attitude, really, Jonathan, that can change. I think for me, part of it also is seeing the change as, what if there's some adventure that lies around the corner with this change? I don't know that yet. And for me in my personal life, and I talk about this in my book, some of the changes I made professionally, I'm so happy now that those changes happened. I didn't know it at the time. And so to have faith and trust that, okay, maybe this isn't all bad. Like there's maybe something that will come out of this, that I can learn a new skill, or I find a new friend, or I can actually rise to the challenge and see myself as living my life as a person who has control and is creative rather than a victim.
Yeah, I really like the idea of focusing on our kind of sphere of influence, what's within our control. Because there's just simply, I mean, there's so much that's outside of our control. And perhaps it comes back to what we were discussing earlier in human nature. We like control, we like predictability, we like certainty. Mm-hmm. The reality is the world at large, the external environment is not predictable, it's not certain, and we can't control it. But we do have a sphere of influence. We do have a sphere within which we do have more control. And so sometimes dealing with change and the emotional and the psychological components of that change will actually be better when we just kind of let the other stuff go, the stuff that we have no control over, the stuff that
huge relief.
Yeah, the stuff that's anxiety inducing. You know, I can't solve world hunger, but I can focus on my family, right? And perhaps if things are good in my family, I can focus on my neighborhood, my community, or whatever. But we start with what we can control, and then we build from there. And that will allow us to be more grounded. And then the influence grows. Absolutely.
Yeah. So as you're talking, I'm also reminded of the importance of setting boundaries for myself. And it's another area, it's very dear to my heart, because I grew up as a helper and I said yes to everybody. I was just willing, I wanted to please. And I'm learning that if I'm not saying yes to myself truly, then it means nothing. And so sometimes a no is actually a yes to myself. And so I think and it ties in with what do I have control over? And so there's times I'm asked to do childcare for my grandchildren and I have things planned and I say no. And my adult children have learned that when I say yes, it's a full body yes. It's not a guilt provoking yes, if I have to. And that's been a tough one. And I don't think maybe women have more struggles with it than men. I don't know that we do. I think it's a life lesson to really become self-aware and to be proud and brave and courageous enough to take care of ourselves. And then to I think, say, you know what, I need some help. That's the other thing I wanted to mention. A leader who is willing to say, you know what, this is tough for me too. I'm getting a coach working with me. I've got some books I'm reading. Anyone interested? This is like a whole new exploratory journey, and we can't do it without help. And then for me, the joy of receiving and the gift exchange that happens when I receive help graciously, say thank you, and don't undermine what I can do or what someone has given me.
Yeah. I think one of the best things we can do, particularly during times of turmoil, high anxiety, and stress, whether that's at home, in our community, or in the workplace, is to surround ourselves with like-minded people that are willing to support each other, right? And so, and when I say like-minded, I'm not saying we need to be a monolith, like we need everyone around us just like us, but I'm saying people who share in purpose, right, and mission. And so if we're in the organization, we're within the workplace, and I'm a leader and I'm trying to deal with the stresses and everything around COVID and how to help my team be successful, but largely work remotely, or whatever, tack on all those things. To the extent that I feel like I have a trusted team, a team of people that appreciate and respect each other, who will support each other, that is a much heavier lift for me as a leader in that kind of a situation, especially if I'm rolling out new policies, new changes, new systems, new processes. But if I'm a leader that doesn't have that support, or I'm a team member where I don't feel like I have that support, that changes the dynamic completely.
Yeah.
And now it's going to reduce the likelihood of that individual either being open and willing to embrace the change, or being able to psychologically, emotionally, to deal with it in a productive way.
Yeah. And so what I hear you saying too is normalizing the fact that people may need extra support emotionally or mentally or physically or financially during this time particularly, and to have that be a gift, that's something that we are willing to talk about. It's not a shameful thing. It's not a deep, dark secret that so-and-so is going to see a therapist or whatever. It's their story to tell. Don't get me wrong. At the same time, to find ways to acknowledge that really what's happening is the uncertainty and the lack of control is just being showcased in a way that never was until now, in quite the same way. And this is when I think the people who haven't perhaps spent time working on ways to manage their anxiety, groundedness, call it what you will, then they're floundering. And those who have taken time for self-care, meditation perhaps, maybe finding a group that supports them, reading certain books, are actually in a position to be a support and to model a grounded lifestyle. I'm very aware of that in my work and in my own life.
Yeah, great thoughts, great tips. Well, Marjorie, it really has been a pleasure talking with you. The time has flown by.
I know. Is that it? Do we have to quit?
Unfortunately, our time draws close to a close, but perhaps we can continue this discussion another time, because it's a really important one. But I do hope listeners will consider, what kind of self-care are you doing to deal, with the emotional strain right now? How do you respond to change, both at home and in the workplace? And as a leader, what do you do to support those people that you lead, that are a part of your team, as they're responding to change? I hope these are the types of questions we're asking ourselves and thinking through. Marjorie, before we close today, I want to give you the last word and give you a chance to share with listeners how they can get connected with you and find out more about what you're doing.
Thank you. I have no speaking events to announce. I am quite active in podcast interviews and guest blog posts. And so my website is the best way for people to learn more about me, MarjorieWarkentin.com. And also I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I have a business page there, inspiredjourney.com. And I would love to hear from people. And this brings me a lot of joy to have this conversation with you, and to realize that there's many of us who are really wanting to live a life that's not filled with victim and anger and resistance, rather joy and peace and courage. That's my hope for our listeners.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's my hope too. It has been a real pleasure talking with you, Marjorie. And I hope everyone will consider reaching out to Marjorie, get connected, find out more of what she can do to help you. I hope everyone will continue to be healthy and safe, and that we can all find meaning and purpose in our work and in our journey each and every day. And I hope everyone has a great week. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are excited to announce the launch of Human Capital Innovation's new e-magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine with the mission to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We will be publishing issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. We hope you'll check out our first issue, and please let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week. Check out our new weekly LinkedIn newsletter, Alchemizing Human Capital, exploring industry trends via original research and interviews with executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We look forward to having you join us.